And welcome to the February 3rd meeting of the Louisville School Division Board of Trustees. We are starting at 6:35 this evening. Land acknowledgement this evening by Trustee Bjornson.
Louisville School Division brings together a community of schools on the traditional land of the Nunavut and Niniwak and Dakota. Our division is located on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize that Manitoba is also the traditional land of the English Niniwak and Dene. We respect the treaties made on this land and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and present. We dedicate ourselves to authentic alliances with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and cooperation. We recognize and honor Shoal Lake 41st Nation, the source of Winnipeg's life-sustaining drinking water, as well as the treaty territories that generate and provide the electricity that powers daily activity throughout the province.
Thank you very much. I would like to extend a warm welcome to folks that are joining us both in the room and online this evening. Just to let you know that we are recording these minutes or this meeting just to ensure that our minutes are recorded accurately. We do have a 15-minute question period at the end of our meeting. If there's any questions on agenda items that you would like to ask. And while we are recording this meeting, we ask that you not please, unless you've been given permission in advance. We have regrets this evening from Trustee Sigurdson. Our vision is for all members of our community to excel as caring, confident, capable, and resilient lifelong learners who contribute to a democratic and sustainable world. And our mission is to provide a safe, inclusive, and engaging environment where personal and collective learning are valued and each one of us reaches our full potential. First item on the agenda is to approve the agenda for tonight. I need a mover and a seconder. Trustee Walker, Trustee Turner, all those in favor? Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is to approve the minutes of our regular board meeting from January 27th. Those have been circulated. I've not been made aware of any errors or omissions, so we will accept and archive those as they've distributed to all of you folks. That takes us to news. First from the Board of Trustees being brought this evening by Trustee Simon Yolo.
Yeah, thank you. First, I do want to recognize that February is Black History Month, and it's been recognized across different schools here in our division, and it's also Reading Month. I want to start off by sharing the concert that I had a pleasure of attending at Niagara Place School. They did a winter concert this year. It was really exciting. It was full of just wonderful music, them singing. There was MCs in the middle of it that were coming in with a drama-like play with lots of jokes. So it was really filled with a lot of cheers and laughter from the crowd, and it was very well attended. You could see even when you're leaving that lots of people live approximately close to home did have an opportunity to walk. So it was really a great time for the neighborhood. I also just wanted to alert the community that February 9th, as a division, we're having Info Night for kindergarten, and then on the 12th will be for the English kindergarten Info Night. This will be going across our entire division, and registration for kindergarten will open from February 17th up to March 27th. So it'd be good to stay close to that as we continue supporting our food day care as part of our multi-education plan. One of them there said musical, but Sage Creek School will be holding their winter concert on February 11th. This month will be next week on Wednesday. So as we go through these great winter concerts that are being held across our division, it'll be time to check out one of those. And I highlighted that one because I think this will be the first one they're having just at Sage Creek School without the French immersion portion of it. So it'll be interesting to see. So I want to highlight that. On February 12th, if many of you remember, CJS had a Black History Month market last year. They're doing again this year. There's an invite that has been sent out. They obviously were saying on the report about how great of an event it was last year, supported by the community. So I would encourage those who are attending this meeting or in the community to attend again this year. I have made a commitment that I'll be there as well. So it'll be important to support our students in that community again this year.
Great. Thank you very much. News from the senior leadership team this time round, provided by Assistant Superintendent Gunther. What's happening here?
Sorry, we were just trying to get set up here. Well, my comments are not opening, however, I'll give this a try. Samuel Berlin School. What you'll see there are some new jerseys that the teams have come up with. They are very excited about that. And so you'll see a lot of team spirit. They're very excited about the energy that's in the gym. You can go up a little bit, Jamie. There was a winter concert that I got to attend. It was minus 40-degree weather, and I got to have a lovely crisp walk to the school, and the gym was filled with community, and it was quite lovely and wonderful. It's always a lovely reminder of how the partnership comes together with families supporting students and all the hard work that staff and kids put together to create a beautiful night like that. I believe this is St. George School, Glenwood School, because they have a community partnership with Glenwood Community Center. So what you'll see there is the skating, the Learn to Skate program that kids are involved in. They're very excited about all the work that's being put in there. Kids get to, I think, have about a week worth of lessons. And what's really exciting about that is some of the kids that are newcomers to Canada get a kind of firsthand experience of one of our Canadian pastimes. And so that has been going very well. They're continuing on with that program. Jamie, I'll get you. Glen Lawn Collegiate is hosting Mamma Mia at their musical. You can get tickets from the office there. And Corey had noted that my name was in the musical, so I will definitely be in attendance. Looking forward to that. St. George School has a partnership with the Wapanoa Community School in Thompson and also a school in Selkirk. Amy, can you push it up a little bit so I can see? Thank you, Robert Smith School. And they've connected with these two schools in terms of the BSIP partnership. They've been granted $20,000 through BSIP, and so that is supporting their work around celebrating and honoring and connecting with Indigenous families and students. They have invited elders and knowledge keepers in. They're doing a series of storytelling sessions, and so they are very looking forward to the community partaking in those storytelling nights. And they also connected with the South Winnipeg Optimist Club, and so they are doing a big student art project. Students engaged in 10 lunch hour sessions of art lessons to be able to create some greeting cards, and so they have put those in for a contest, and so we are hopeful that some of those pieces will be displayed. So I don't have those pieces for you today. That will be a surprise. They also hosted a family numeracy night, and so they had claimed that families were community really enjoyed the event, and they talked about making math joyful and accessible and playful for all. And they also are connecting with Toy Box, so you'll see services on your left, my left, and then visible there at St. George School, and so they have connected with Toy Box to host these numeracy evenings. And if you scroll a little bit higher, Jamie, or yeah, you'll see some of the work that kids have done in terms of using math as a way to express themselves, as a way to get to one another in a really fun and accessible way. And finally, at Dr. Penner School, you'll see a lot of the engagements that are happening there. They talked about January being a really great time for focus on a lot of focused learning, early math assessment, the DIBELS assessment. They wanted to give a shout out to all the staff, the teachers and educational assistants and admin that supported that. And then of course the clinicians that help to interpret the results, which help guide future instruction and interventions. They also have a basketball season that is heavily underway, which they are enjoying and doing very well in. So they're looking forward to that continued season. And then you'll just see some of the snack and breakfast program pictures. So they had let us know that their program has expanded exponentially. And so breakfast serves, I believe, over 60 children a day. And the snack program is also supported by over 40 student volunteers. So they are really excited about the leadership that their students are showing. And a couple of more pictures here about this school spirit that they want to share with us.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, thanks to our news bringers for a quick loop around the division and some highlights as to things that are happening in schools and out of schools. That was great. Item 4 is presentations to the board. This evening, folks here to share with us, and I'm going to setting things up yourself or you
Yeah,
okay,
sure, please.
thank you.
I'm happy to welcome two colleagues to the board meeting this evening. Sean Oliver, who is on the Indigenous Education Section, is a teacher librarian in two of our schools in Oresti, École Provinciale La Reine. And they are leading your strategic action 4.5 in our multi-year plan, and they have been bringing together community for some time now, and we felt it important that they come to share the journey we've been on. So I'm so happy to have this evening. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having us this evening. Thanks for your time. We'll try to be quick, but we really want to ensure that we're spending the appropriate amount of time to get the message across. We've worked very hard on our presentation. And so here we are. This logo that you see, Learning with the Land, is a logo that was created last year for our first Learning with the Land event that was held May 22nd at the Forks. And so I just thank you for putting your eyes on that logo and remembering it, because you're going to continue to see it hopefully for a long time to come. Next slide, please, Jamie. The multi-year strategic plan 4.5 purposely is worded very purposely after a lot of consultation with community for a very long time. After looking at the importance of a framework like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and asking ourselves, what is an opportunity here if we were to add the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples? Can we do one of these? Can we see the value in one of these frameworks without seeing the can we see how both of them are basically tied together? So the idea of 4.5 is to see how we can create a better world with people and land in mind, with the understanding that what we do to one, we do to all. And so that's the work that Suzanne and I have been engaging in this year, is trying to bring that to the forefront of what we're doing with this multi-strategic goal. The first thing we're going to talk about is urgency. This work, this idea, this Cree and Métis teaching of Wokotowin, the idea that we have, the idea that becoming a good person in the world that we live in requires a deeper understanding of how we're in relationship, not only with ourselves and our families and our communities, but the land and the environment and also the cosmos above. And so that holds us to a level of responsibility with one another and with land. This idea, like I said, what we do to one, we do to all. It's something that our elders are talking about all the time. And so you see the quote up there: the same systems that oppress people, oppress land and planet and water, air, and all of those things that are sacred and that are required for life. When we think about how harming the land can impact people, you see the picture up there of a family boarding a plane in Garden Hill after the forest fires this summer. And we don't have to look very far outside of this province at our relatives' experiences when land is harmed, how families end up struggling. Next, please. And so thinking about Wokotowin, looking at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, these were formed by the United Nations, like I said, with a goal of reaching a lot of these goals by 2030. That's not going to happen.
Not there yet.
Not there yet, but what this does is it gives us a path and a framework to work with in understanding that it's not, that all of these things are connected. This really is Wokotowin, just in a different way of looking at it. And so how do we bring this to the experiences of students? How do we connect it to their passions? How do we bring their voices forward in this work? Next slide, please. And with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, this is a global framework that aims to acknowledge the inherent rights, not not the rights afforded by a government, but the inherent rights of Indigenous peoples and how that's all connected with the idea of climate action, the idea of reduced inequalities, the idea of creating a better world for all of us. How do we do that without Indigenous people's inherent rights at center and without Indigenous voices at the table?
We cannot talk about that.
Right. Oh, yeah, we thought that this slide would be sort of a tap the images forward. So it's not
Here
open.
we are with a PDF.
Here we are with a PDF.
Sorry.
That's okay. So let's proceed. So the first slide you would have seen would have shown the rates of suicide in Indigenous communities in Manitoba. A very, very staggering number when compared with non-Indigenous experiences. We would have seen statistics around missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. And it's important for us to understand how we treat land and how we've treated our most vulnerable and sometimes most marginalized populations go hand in hand. The next would have shown statistics around Indigenous overrepresentation of Indigenous peoples and being incarcerated. And the next statistic would have shown Indigenous children in foster care. And I think everybody in this room is pretty well aware that those statistics are staggering. What we're trying to do is bring together the idea of how this relates to also the planet, how we live in relationship with one another every single day. Next, please. And so this image has been sort of it stands in place as a provocation for us to think about what it means to be a Manitoban, what it means to live on Turtle Island, what it means to be living here together in relationship with people, but also to be a human being and to need things like energy and water, to need education, a good, safe community to live in, a place where you can dream, like these two young girls are dreaming here. But there's something at the heart of this picture that is a provocation. There's a bit of cognitive dissonance in this picture. When we think about the impacts of hydroelectricity in northern communities, we think how that translates into the experiences of the very families and students that we serve in our school division today. So that's at the heart of NYSP 4.5.
So here we want to talk a little bit about the urgency, specifically through a climate change lens. As we've experienced, last summer was one of the hottest years on record. In fact, it was the third hottest year on record, second only to 2024 and 2023. And 2026 is projected to be just as hot. And as you can see on the image on the right, disaster displaces Indigenous people in Canada, and that is increasing year over year. They are experiencing this at a higher rate than non-Indigenous people. And we can see that this is a problem that is being experienced across Turtle Island and internationally. This is a graph from 2023 where you can see that all of Manitoba's displaced peoples, displaced by disasters, they were entirely Indigenous that year. I want to talk a little bit about the student experience. This is something that students are living with. This is a reality that they have to grow up in and make peace with, something that we didn't have to do quite to the same extent as this generation. And what they're telling us when asked in studies and polls is that they have rising climate anxiety, and that 78% of Canadian youth say that climate change is negatively impacting their mental health. Nearly half of them are worried about the impacts on people and planet. And a graph that you can't see because of the PDF would show that 48% think that the planet is doomed. So that's nearly half of our youth who are really being very honest about the state of despair and anxiety that they feel. And they're looking to us as decision makers and adults in their lives and people with power in institutions to lead by example and to listen to their experience and voice.
The photo up there is of the Spence family. They shared their experiences with CBC just recently, amongst many other First Nations families from northern communities, talking about experiences with the wildfires, talking about experiences with being shut off or losing access to their hydroelectricity, talking about experiences with what it's been like to have their lands flooded out by hydroelectric development when those agreements have never been paid out or honored in a good way. And so I'm just thinking about all the families I've had the amazing opportunity to work with over a decade and a half in the public education system. And, you know, families want to do well, but sometimes families face barriers to a degree that's much greater than others as a result of our lack of understanding, I think, our lack of understanding and our lack of commitment to understanding and continued understanding of the idea of how we're all in relationship together. This, we had, again, a few slides stacked here, pictures stacked, but what this was data from our division. And this data suggests that the gaps continue. The gaps continue across socioeconomic status, differences in socioeconomic status, the gaps for educational achievement and outcomes for Indigenous students. It just, these statistics show us that we're failing. We're currently failing in many ways. And so it's incumbent upon us to do something and act immediately. So that's part of that urgency message as well.
So we'd like to talk a little bit about climate action. It is one piece of the work we're trying to do with Multi-Year Strategic Plan 4.5, but it is a hopeful piece. I find it's a good starting point. So this quote, I'll just read it out. A resurgence of Indigenous political cultures, governances, and nation building requires generations of Indigenous people to grow up intimately and strongly connected to our homelands, immersed in our languages and spiritualities, and embodying our traditions of agency, leadership, decision-making, and diplomacy. This requires a radical break from state education systems that are primarily designed to produce communities of individuals willing to uphold settler colonialism. So in other words, we owe it to the land and to students that they have an experience in our school systems where they graduate as people who are unwilling to participate in settler colonialism. And I think climate action can be a way to show reconciliation. I'd like to talk a little bit, that was the urgency piece, the why this is important. We'd like to kind of switch to the progress, what's being done, where are we. And I'd like to start with this report produced by LSF last year in 2025. And in it, it says that 73% of Manitoba residents think that climate change education needs to teach students to be critical thinkers. And 60% think that they have to encourage student change of behavior of their families. 64% of Manitoba students also feel something similar. They think climate change education should be a high priority in schooling, and 55% think that that should be the teacher's role. So there's quite a bit of buy-in and quite a bit of demand from the general population for this type of work in schools. On the next slide, it asks them to reflect on what they're currently experiencing in climate change education. And 40% of students in Manitoba say that they sometimes talk about it, and 42% say they rarely do. And in contrast with Canadian statistics, this is slightly lower, 48 and 33 respectively. It's a little sad, I have to say, when I see those numbers. I wonder about what they're talking about with climate change as well. How deep are they going? Are they connecting it with UNDRIP and the SDGs? Are they just talking about compost? I'm not quite sure. But I do also see it through a hopeful lens in that there is a lot of room for improvement. What's coming from government? There is a lot in the works right now connected to this work. For instance, Manitoba has agreed to start a climate action framework. It's under development. There's currently a climate change committee of cabinet, the Manitoba government. Climate literacy is going to be tested in 2029 with the PISA test, which is for all 15-year-old students. Winnipeg is committed to 30 by 30, meaning 30% of land and water will be protected by 2030. And there's even a federal environmental education framework under development. And more school divisions are publishing and developing climate action plans and policies. Internationally as well, IPCC is urging schools to take immediate action and for that action to be hopeful. We want to lift students up and to show them that we are working with them towards a hopeful outcome. And recently, COP30 called for the acceleration of green schools, so more schools engaged in this type of work. I did want to point out one interesting resource for you, and we do have a slide at the end with others, but this one I think is particularly relevant for school board trustees. So this was developed by Lakehead University, and it's a climate leadership document for school boards to consider. And in it, they suggest that school boards develop a holistic climate action plan, that they make sure that this plan is transparent, as well as policies for purchasing and across maintenance and all the departments, that staff and resources are allocated to this work specifically, and that they do this in collaboration with local organizations, and that they declare a climate emergency. I did also want to just point out some things that are happening in our city, in the metro area. Seven Oaks School Division has been involved with this work since 2017, when they purchased land and they built the land-based Key Center. In 2019, they declared a climate emergency. And in 2023, they hired a full-time climate action divisional teacher team leader. And last year, they produced, with community and talking to stakeholders, teachers and students and everyone, they produced a climate action plan. In Winnipeg School Division, they started in 2023-24, where they added this to the portfolio of one of the assistant superintendents. And then just this summer, they hired somebody as a program director of climate justice and sustainability. And I heard rumors that they are also planning to work on a climate action plan next year. And I just wanted to touch briefly on the fact that we don't have to reinvent the wheel if we decide to do something similar. There are more and more school divisions that are coming up with climate action plans. And of course, we'd have to tweak it for our context and make sure that it matches with multi-year strategic plan 4.5 and includes UNDRIP. But my point here is that we don't have to build it from scratch. There are many, many out there. One of my favorites are from Denver. Just last week, we had the region of Upper Grand, which is right close to Toronto, publish a climate action plan too. So these are coming fast. In our context, in Louis Riel School Division, when we were thinking about this presentation and the history of the work, this stood out as a very important moment for students in Louis Riel. In 2009, over 10,000 students participated by going to the ledge and asking those empowered to prioritize climate action. And we had many students from our school division participate. We also, I'm not sure if you remember, I certainly do, but last year we had a delegation of students come to speak to the board. They represented 5 different schools from across the school division, K to 12 schools, and they were asking you about what your plans were related to this work.
And here's what's happened since. Many things all over the school division and all of our schools are happening all the time in relation to this work. Last year, I had the pleasure and opportunity of teaching an Indigenous land-based learning course at Windsor Park Collegiate. I just want to share a few of these photos with you. I'm not going to overly explain, but I'll just tell you in one of these photos, it's the first time one of these young men has ever gone fishing in his own homeland. And one of these photos, this is a child who grew up in Care that doesn't speak in school and comes about 10% of the time, but he came just about every time for land-based learning. In one of these photos, you see a young man, a moose hunter actually from Red Sucker Lake, who also struggles a little bit sometimes with attendance, but was there every single time to show Indigenous youth leadership how to fillet fish, and then ended up mentoring for 2 days with grade 7/8 from Marion last year, showing them all of the skills that he had. And another one of these pictures, one of these young ladies here decided that when we cut some tamarack out in the forest last year, we were gonna donate that to the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. There they had a camp for missing and murdered women, girls, and Two-Spirit. And she wanted to come and bring that wood to them. So that's what we did. Next slide, please. And just an example of a project, going out, introducing our students to the land, doing some medicine picking, some relational witnessing, finding some cranberries there, going back and thinking, geez, we should make some cranberry ketchup. So I brought my mom in, and they met their meme, my mom, and she taught them all about canning. And the first thing they wanted to do once they canned their own cranberry sauce was gift it to all their favorite teachers at school. These are the types of projects that we need to bring alive in the school division. We need to amplify these voices, support them with as much as we can, And that's what that Learning from the Land event is all about in May.
And I think it also is a great example of how UNDRIP and SDGs can help deepen learning by connecting it with a broader context. How does learning about cranberries help the community?
Yeah, it's the conversations that come about as a result of just the experiences that we have together and the community that we build. So last year, this is a picture of our gathering at the Forks. Well, we called it a gathering to celebrate and dream. And that's very much what it is again this year. We also named it in honor of Kukum Hilda, who I spent many years with on the same team and learned so much from, especially in relation to the land. And so it was an honor to name it after Kukum with permission from her family. But that day we had community partners from all across southern Manitoba. We had folks coming from communities far and wide. We had students from all grade levels. They're putting on different activities, shining. I watched a young man I've known for 4 years become a storyteller that day. You know, it's this opportunity is really more than just a field trip. It's an expression of what we can do when we come together as community under one common goal, but a goal that's centered around the right thing and understanding that land and people go hand in hand. And so this year, what we've decided to do is gather teachers together and ask them to be leaders in their schools. So we have representatives from all of our schools acting as teacher leaders, and we've gathered them for 3 sessions so far, full day sessions. We're going for 5 full day sessions under the themes of reclaiming and restoring abundance, talking about social and relational abundance, talking about these lands of water and why this place is so important, and talking about powering change and empowering students, but also thinking about our energy needs. And so some of these bigger pieces, and inviting folks like Audrey Logan in to come and share with us, elders with teachings for days, as she has.
Yes, and each one of these gatherings centers some of the articles from UNDRIP as well as some of the SDGs.
So this is it, coming up May 21st, please mark it on your calendars. Of course, you're all invited. It's a day to honor and center student learning and student voices, to learn from each other in the community, to form and foster partnerships. And it's also paired with the Be an Upstander exhibit that's going to be happening at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights that day for our 2nd year in a row. Partnerships continue to grow as we nourish this work.
So as we are understanding the urgency, we're sharing a little bit about the progress. We're now asking you to move towards permanence. So using that language that we were gifted at our divisional PD, how do we embed this into what we're doing? So we're here to ask you for 8 things, or 8 ways you can support this work. And the first one has to do with policy. So we're asking Louis Riel School Division to continue to engage with community and to produce policy that ensures the alignment between the UNDRIP and SDGs in our work. Next, we are asking, next slide, please. Thank you. We're asking to continue to include this in next year's multi-year strategic plan. We're asking for support for student-led, grassroots, school-based initiatives that center their voice and action and that engage and empower students. We're asking for continued financial support for the Learning with the Land gathering at the Forks. We're asking for continued staffing support with as a way to support teachers and principals and students as they engage with multi-year strategic plan 4.5 and this important work. We're asking to deepen community partnerships with organizations that are already doing this in Winnipeg. And we're also asking for an official declaration of a climate emergency by Louis Riel School Division Board, as well as a continued commitment to Indigenous land-based learning. So it sounds like a lot, 8 different things, but really, in other words, at the heart of it is we're asking for policy and we're asking for resources to help us teach about what it means to be a good neighbor to our human relatives, and a good neighbor to our more than human relatives, and a good neighbor across time through generations. So here are some extra resources. If you feel like reading, I would highly recommend them. Or you can just come and meet with Sean and I and the team. We should mention Roy Norris and Benedict Reynolds were not able to come tonight. And we also have a handout we'd like to leave you with. This was an opinion piece published in the Winnipeg Free Press. It's written by school board trustee from the Winnipeg School Division, and it's entitled Climate Justice is Reconciliation. And that's by Anne Evangelista. So we'll leave that for you to read too.
Yeah, and just a quick point, we're hoping for this to be in the reiteration of the multi-year strategic plan after 1 year from now. Just to clarify that piece, and there's our contact information. We don't just hope you reach out to us, we're gonna sit there and actually hold our breath until you reach out to us to talk about this, even because it really matters. So we'll talk with you soon. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Don't sit down just yet. Trustees, what questions do you have for our guests? Trustee Walker, trustee College.
I have a comment. So thank you for all the work that you're doing on our path. It's very, very important work. And I agree with you that it's a lot easier as an educator to be doing things like this if you have the support of your leadership team. And I've been seeing that. I really do appreciate the support that I see from our school leadership. And I'd be more than happy to move a motion to declare a climate emergency. It's close to my heart. I made a point this morning, even though I had a lot of places to be, I got around Winnipeg on public transit today rather than using the car. It's near and dear to my heart, and I'm happy to take the extra time to demonstrate to my school community. It's a very important matter. So thanks for your work. I'll be reaching out to you too. I'd love to get a chat and hear more about it. I'll do whatever I can to support you. Thanks. Thank you.
Trustee College.
Thank you very much. It was a very good presentation. It's very timely as we move in with budget tasks. I was just wondering in regards to your work kind of with the land, are you doing anything with the Universal Nutrition Program and Jeremy Bender in regards to some of his projects that he's working on?
Yeah, we are. So we were talking about reclaiming, restoring abundance. We had Audrey Logan come share with us about her work with food sovereignty in Manitoba. We invited Jeremy in, and Jeremy was a special guest that day, and how we had some pretty deep conversations with him about his work. So that's an ongoing thing, and Jeremy remains an ongoing invitee to all of our gatherings.
No, that's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? Trustee Bjornson?
You mentioned that you would hope that we would work to develop partnerships. Are there some groups that you're already partnering with and working with? I'd be curious to know who they are.
Yeah, I couldn't, it's such a long list that I couldn't actually physically carry the scroll in today.
That's a good problem to have.
It is, and I'm joking, but I'm serious. It's pages and pages of willing community partners who've since last year have said, we love what you're doing. We would love to be part of this. We'd love to share our programming with kids, or we'd love to get them involved in what we have to offer to the community. So we have a specific group with the school and classroom support team right now who's reaching out to community members. We also have our planning committee with Nick Reynolds and Roy Norris and Suzanne and myself doing that work. But we also have those connections from last year too. So it's big.
And I would just add that we have invited them to present like at a table for our May event at the Forks. But I think there might be a little disconnect. Sometimes they don't know how to get into a school system, or like the timing of it. Like, don't ask me mid-June, too busy. So yeah, having a point person or somebody they can reach out to, we're trying to be those people. We're trying to bridge that gap between the resources that they have through granting and experience, and then sharing that with the students. Yeah.
MCIC is one of our biggest partners so far. And so they were at our last gathering. Bea Bazran and her team brought all of the literature that they have to pass out. They did a presentation and showed us about a game that had to do with fashion.
Yeah, fast fashion.
Fast fashion.
Yeah.
So the partners, the partnerships are rich. They're quite low hanging fruit.
Superintendent Michelle.
I want to thank Sean and Suzanne, as it's been said, for their leadership and for grounding this collective work in both urgency yet hope. This is what I find most amazing in Suzanne and Sean, is how they day in, day out deliver a message of urgency. But I'm always leaving hopeful for the future.
Thank you. Trustee Palmquist.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Suzanne, in particular. We're acquainted through the Vatican school community, and in particular with acknowledgement of your work on the Safe Wet Routes to School programs there in École Glaché. I think when it comes to climate and the role of school divisions, one of the a really striking statistic is we know that up to 30% of the carbon emissions emitted in Manitoba are strictly related to transportation and most of those personal vehicles. And at any given time, as many, especially in the morning rush hour, as many as 20 to 30% of vehicles that are on the road at any given time are parents driving to school. It would not be an exaggeration to say that schools are a major contributor to transportation related emissions from personal vehicles. And we have a significant role to play in that. So I want to thank you for the work that I've encountered personally on that regard. And likewise, Sean, I wanted to address that comment for Suzanne in particular, but thank you for the excellent presentation.
Thank you very much for using the words hope and abundance several times. They're important words, and it's easy, as you alluded to kind of get caught up in the angst of it, and which is not what we want our young people to be thinking that their future is all about. So your work is important. Our conversations that you've encouraged us to have, challenged us to have, will be important, and we look forward to speaking with you again. So thanks very much for joining us.
Oh, they don't want to say.
Right. That takes us to item 5, which is finance and audit. One item here, which is of course budget related this time of year, and to the Secretary Treasurer, our Secretary Treasurer, regarding our property tax estimator.
Thank you very much. I don't know why I'm always after the presentations, with agendas. No one ever wants to listen to me after all the amazing
Of course we do.
presenters
Of course
that
we do.
we get, so. Yeah, so I just wanted to give an update on, or just want to share feedback that we've received so far through our survey. And so as of today, we've received 1,347 responses to our survey. People are taking an average of about 30 minutes and 10 seconds to fill out the survey. So they're taking the time to, a lot of their time to provide their feedback. So I just want to thank the public for that. And we've had this, this survey open for 12 days, and it'll be open until the end of the month. Just some statistics to share with you. 49% of our respondents are parents, guardians, or caregivers of students in the Louis-Riel School Division. 21% are teachers, 6% are educational assistants, 5% are support staff, and 4% are students of LRSD. So that's kind of the breakdown so far of the respondents that we've received. And just some general kind of feedback or comments from the survey so far is that there is a strong consensus across the survey that maintaining or reducing class sizes, increasing support for students with special learning needs, especially educational assistants and clinicians, and addressing mental health and well-being are the most critical priorities for LRC budget and strategic planning. These themes are consistently ranked as very important and appear most frequent in both structured and open-ended responses. The majority of respondents support a balanced approach to addressing funding challenges, with a preference for advocating for increased provincial funding while maintaining services rather than reducing programs or relying solely on property tax increases. Many comments also highlighted concerns about administrative costs and suggested reallocating resources directly to classrooms and student supports. The most common calls for action in open-ended feedback reinforce the urgency around resource allocation to support more education assistance, better mental health supports, and improvements to school infrastructure. So that's kind of the very high global feedback that we've received so far from the survey. I also just wanted to point to the public our education property tax estimator. You can find this on our website. So I'll show everyone here on our landing page on our public website. If if you go to our menu and we go to school board, see a nice page with all the trustees' pictures and contact information. And at the bottom, there is a tab for view finances for financial information. And when you go in here, we've added a property tax, education property tax estimator. So essentially how it works is, if you go to the bottom after reading the verbiage, is we have a calculator on the bottom with what the current assessed value is for an average house. This can be adjusted, so if your house is, say, 400,000, you can change the rates, press estimate, and you can see what the change in or increase in your property taxes are. We've also built it where you can change different scenarios. So right now, we've proposed 11.53% mill rate increase. Just as a reminder, this is assuming no property tax or no funding increase from the province, and it's been presented as a scenario so far. But if you wanted to find out how much a 10% increase would be, you can see the value change on the bottom. So it goes right down to, we have it down to 4%. So that's what I wanted to highlight for the public today regarding our budget.
Great, thank you. Trustees, any questions? All right, that takes us to staff. Sorry, trustee Seminola, apologies.
Is there any way to know how many community members have interacted with Kilada so far or no?
No.
Good question. Trustee Kolachuk?
Can we track it? I'm sure I can track the link. People are clicking on that link.
I would have to talk to the developers.
Okay. I've done already, but.
I'll check the data.
Okay, thank you. All right, under item 6, staffing, we have some vice principals that are going to be transferred to different schools in the fall. And I will turn to the superintendent just to walk through this list.
So we've had lots of dialogue with the colleagues I'm going to mention this evening, and colleagues they work with at present and will be working with next year as a result of the proposed transfers. So we are recommending that Carole Bonnet move from École Julie Riel to École Howden for September as vice principal. These are all vice principal transfers. Julie Robertson is at École Howden and she would transfer over to École Julie. Jonathan Wolf is presently at Victor Major School, and we are recommending his transfer from Nelson McIntyre Collegiate. Jonathan Burnham is vice principal at school, and we're recommending his transfer to Victor Major. Megan Shankro is Archwood School, and we are recommending a transfer to Glenwood. Robin Hingley is at Hastings School at the present time, and we're recommending a transfer to Archwood. And Allison Erickson is vice principal at Nelson McIntyre Collegiate this year, and we are recommending a transfer to Hastings School.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions on these transfers? I think this is information received. There is no motion attached to this. I apologize. So the recommendation or the motion before us then is that the following vice principals be transferred in accordance with Articles 5.09 and or 5.10 of the MSBA MTS Collective Agreement effective August 1st, 2026. Carole Bonnet to École Howden from École Julie Riel. Julie Robertson transferred to École Julie Riel from École Howden. Jonathan Wolf transferred to Nelson McIntyre Collegiate from Victor Major Collegiate. Jonathan Burnham transferred to Victor Major from Glenwood School. Megan Shangro transferred to Glenwood School from Archwood School. Robin Plouffe Hingley transferred to Archwood School from Hastings School. and Allison Erickson transfer to Hastings School from Nelson McIntyre Collegiate. For a seconder, please. Trustee Turner and Trustee Simoniola, thank you. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you. We wish all of these folks great success in their new surroundings, their new schools, and hope it's the right balance of reward and challenge as they start off in a new place in the fall. Senior leadership team information to the board. We begin with the capital projects updates.
I'm going to provide a brief update on our capital projects, highlighting the changes since last month. So I'm going to start with the provincially funded projects. Island Lakes Community School. The modulars were successfully moved in mid-December, and electrical work is scheduled to be completed this week. The report you received was suggesting next week, but received the report last week. Steel stairs are now installed and work on the elevated walkways in the way. Consultant inspections are expected in mid-February, followed by final occupancy. J.H. Bruns Collegiate addition and renovation. The design RFP closed on January 15th, and we received 5 submissions. Both the provincial and our own evaluation is complete, and we are now awaiting the tender award and support letter from the province. And so we need this design, this final design for a shovel-ready project, hopefully next year. Shamrock School building envelope, the contractor mobilized before winter break. Permits are in place and construction began with stucco demolition and excavation this January. Glenwood School elevator, hygiene room and roof. Government has asked for revisions to the 99% design package. That's 99% ready for construction. And so we're awaiting approval to proceed. Science class renewals at both J.H. Bruns Collegiate and Windsor Park Collegiate. We have received authorization to move to a construction request for proposal. However, both tender packages must be updated to meet 2020 building code, and consultants are busily working on revisions as we speak. École Marianne Gabouri, HVAC upgrade, most of the work is complete with final commissioning and owners training planned for February. So the revised date is February 28th. I turn to divisional projects now. We divisionally funded projects. So you see a list of numerous projects that have now been marked complete, including barrier-free ramp installation at a Victor Major, window replacements at Glenwood School, locker addition to J.H. Bruns Collegiate, and upgrades across multiple schools, such as flooring, lighting, bottle filling stations, and PAs. In development at École Howden are concept plans and Class C estimates for the kindergarten classroom. So the team is exploring right now the structural options to remove steel columns to improve that and expand that learning space. And finally, Glenwood School air conditioning. So we are in the process of tendering that work. Tender was posted in January and closes in February. Ongoing. École Provencher HVAC, the air conditioning there. So we are working on the refrigeration lines and electrical infrastructure at the moment with commissioning planned around spring break. So École Provencher will have air conditioning first time in its come summer, come June, come May, come April, whenever we need that air conditioning to turn on. Our property at 3280 St. Mary's Road, the city has requested additional site plan details following the rezoning application review, and consultants are preparing that information. The Therapeutic Learning Center in this building is advancing with Class D design and a phasing plan received in December. And Marion School washrooms, the work is progressing well, and we expect a March 9th completion date. So I just highlighted some of the big work, but you have that long list of detailed work that you've reviewed. As we look ahead to the future of College Benito and Windsor Park, I want to share this evening an important update about the planned relocations. After careful review, we've determined that we must delay the relocations beyond the 26-27 school. Both relocations depend on significant renovation to ensure the receiving facilities fully meet program accessibility, safety, and operational requirements. These renovations cannot begin until the formal provincial authorization, and authorization has not yet been issued. So without that approval, advancing the relocation timelines would introduce avoidable risk and uncertainty and disruption for students, staff, and families. So to maintain that stability and predictability for both school communities, we'll pause the relocation plans until the province confirms the necessary approvals. And so we will be communicating this update tomorrow to both school communities. And our message will emphasize that the delay is procedural, that no commitments are being undone, just responsibly rescheduled. Student learning environments and well-being remains our top priority. And we will continue working closely with the province to secure the required authorization as soon as possible. That concludes the highlights of updates since the last report.
Great. Thank you, trustees. Any questions? Trustee Palmquist.
A little smaller than these major projects in this list, but I wanted to quickly point out and applaud the installation of bike cages at École Provencher, École Saint-Germain. Theme of our great presentation earlier today. Risk of bike theft is consistently identified as one of the #1 barriers for people who want to actively commute. And further to that, the revolution of e-bikes and e-scooters has presented additional demand and or risk for people who want to commute in that way. So I would applaud that direction, those investments, and I hope to see that that would ultimately become a standard feature at all of our schools.
Thank you, Trustee Walker.
I can confirm that bike theft is a problem at our schools. My son had his bike lock cut last year. Unfortunately, the school staff went out and asked the individual to stop taking his bike, but it's definitely a barrier to lose $1,000 bike to
Any other questions related to capital projects? Great, thank you very much. Pan-Canadian Assessment Program, item 7.2.
Before I hand it off to Assistant Superintendent Anderson, I want to walk us through the details of Manitoba's PCAP 2023 results. I'm going to begin by a brief framing. And my framing is inspired by Ken Clark's approach. So he writes often in the Winnipeg Free Press these matters, and I appreciate his thinking. He, in his article, encourages us to think scientifically when interpreting large-scale assessments, and in this case, the large-scale assessment is about science. And so he suggests we really have to observe carefully, interpret cautiously, and avoid slipping into ranking rhetoric. I love those words, or alarmism. So to help with that, I'm going to want us to remember what PCAP is and what it isn't. So PCAP is a pan-Canadian assessment, not a provincial curriculum test. It measures skills and competencies that are common across provinces and focuses on how well students can apply what they know in real life. It's administered on a regular cycle, and in 2023 involved about 31,500 students from more than 1,400 schools across all 10 provinces. So what it provides is a national snapshot not a scorecard. And for science, the major domain this cycle, level 2 represents the expected level of performance for grade students. And so PCAP is a system level 2. It's designed to help ministries more than anyone else reflect on learning. It's not designed to evaluate teachers or students or individual schools or school divisions for that matter. So with that broad framing in mind, I'll now turn things over to Jeff Anderson, who will take us deeper into the Manitoba results, the trends, and what they mean for our ongoing work.
Very good, thank you. So trustees, you'll recall a presentation in 2023 outlining for you the PCAP program as it was unfolding in our schools in Louisville. We had several schools that were randomly chosen to participate: Archwood, Belleville, Frontenac, George McDowell, Guillaume, HS Paul, Island Lakes, St. George, Ben Bellingham, Baden, and Windsor Park Collegiate. So quite a number of our students were involved in writing this assessment. And the assessment, just for context, it takes about 90 minutes for students to complete the assessment. And it is an online administration. And there's about a 30-minute contextual questionnaire that accompanies it as well. So in terms of overall results, Manitoba's PCAP results show mixed performance with improvements in some areas and below average scores overall. The domain-specific trends in science and math, we saw significant improvements in both of those areas. Reading scores remain largely unchanged since the last administration. So in terms of the ranking, you'll be familiar with many other systems of evaluation like PISA. PCAP is different in that it is only administered within Canada. It was across the 10 provinces. The territories did not participate in this. And what we saw is that 83% of Manitoba students met science performance benchmarks. That was lower than the national benchmark of 89%, but higher than Manitoba students performed on the last assessment. I would add that the assessment also allows for some breakdown in terms of subgroups of students who write, and we were able to see some trends related to boys versus girls in their learning, as well as comparisons between English and French immersion program system and the French first language program. I would mention that as this is especially useful at the highest level, the ministry level, the opportunity here is that these results will be able to inform implementation of the new science curriculum from kindergarten to grade 10, which is being piloted in some schools this year and will be implemented system-wide next year. So data from this assessment will help the province in refining the curriculum to better meet the overall goals of science education.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions? All right, seeing none, that takes us to item 3, the Provincial Assessment Data Hub. To the superintendent.
So I am going to share some information this evening. We're going to look at our recently published results, publicly available, related to these provincial assessments in grades 3, 4, 7, and 8. And then I'm also going to go back to or have us look at the provincial dashboards for more context and compare and contrast both Power BI reports. So first though, let's talk about what these assessments are. As a visual, we may as well go down to that new dashboard that bringing to your attention this evening. All right. So before we delve into the dashboard, what are we looking at here? So these are formative first assessments. Although we're looking at a summative system reporting here in the school division and in the province, what they are first and foremost are formative. So that policy documents are clear and actually documents on the report. These are classroom-based assessments that rely on teacher observations, conversations, and evidence from regular classroom work. Their primary purpose is formative, to identify students' strengths and needs early in the year. Earlier in the year in grades 3 and 4, and in January in grades 7 and 8. But it's all about using that information, teachers using that information to guide instructional planning and next steps. It's not a summative assessment about student performance. And it's not a test. It relies on professional judgment, teacher professional judgment. So with that in mind, now let's have a look at what we see here. We see the results for the 2024 school year. Of course, teachers in LRSD in the fall of 25 and now in January of 26 are making these assessments and are learning from these assessments relative to their teaching practice in real time. But we can't look at all of that from a systemic view yet. We'll be able to look at that next year. Because we wait for these are provincial assessments, so we wait for the province to get back to us about their analysis of those assessments. Okay, so we have these headline results first, just like the province. We see in grade 3 reading and English, 48.2%. In grade 3 numeracy, 37.6%. And so on. And what these are a gauge that shows the percentage of students that meet expectations in all of the competencies that the policy is asking teachers to report. Now, how our dashboard differs from the province is how you can now drill down. So I'll ask our Secretary Treasurer to drill down. So for early literacy, for grade 3, we can see what those actual expectations are relative to 3 competencies. So we can see that 48.2% of students met expectations in all 3 competencies, but when we drill down to the actual competencies, we can see that in grade 3 reading in English, in both French immersion and English schools, 62% of students meet expectations of reflecting on and setting reading goals, for example. And 56.2% use strategies during reading to make sense of texts. And so this drill through hopefully helps our public to better understand the nature of these assessments and make sense of that headline result that we see both on the provincial assessment dashboard and and at the start of our own. And so hopefully, again, this helps the public understand the strengths that teachers are building from, and how they will focus their instruction where we see fewer students meeting expectation in a given context. So if your Treasurer Rudnicki goes back, clicks the arrow at the top, we can see how that drill through works for numeracy in grades 3 and 7. And we can, again, help the public understand that although 37.6% of students in grade 3 meet all expectations, meet expectations and all the competencies, when we dig deeper and look at each of the competencies, we can see that for last year how how expectations were met relative to these competencies in the fall, and how that informed teaching practice through the rest of the year. So let's have a look at that provincial dashboard and see how it's different and similar to the dashboard we've published recently. And so let's have a look just at the grades 3 and 4 assessment.
Yeah, I had a question, but it had to do with the previous dashboard, but we can go through this.
I'm almost done.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So Jamie, can you click on grades 3 and 4? Thank you. And so yes, please, thank you. We're just going to focus on the English program. So one difference in our dashboard in LRSD from the provincial one is that when the assessments are in English, say for numeracy, or reading in English, or writing in English in the later grades, we don't differentiate English and French immersion. All the kids are writing it, are being assessed on English or numeracy. We're not differentiating. So that's one difference. The provincial dashboard differentiates, and you saw if we pointed back, when you're on the provincial dashboard, you gotta choose. No matter the assessment, are you looking at a French immersion school or an English? And the only time it matters to us that we're looking at something that's relative to French immersion is French literature. So that's important when you're trying to compare the dashboard, the provincial dashboard, to ours and make sense of it. And you'll see that the provincial dashboard provides a result by region as well. So you'll see that when looking at the provincial dashboard, you want to look at the urban result. It more closely matches us, an urban school division. And now, of course, the province also, we see differentiates for students and their self-declared Indigenous identity. So we can see that, we can see the difference in results for those who identify as Indigenous versus non-Indigenous. And they choose to also differentiate by female and male gender identities. We're choosing not to do that in LRA. Not that it doesn't matter to us, but we look at different groupings of students, socioeconomic status, cultural identity, gender identity. It does. We're mindful of how impactful some of this, how misinterpreted this, how for some, it's a deficit narrative. It's about students and their abilities. And for us, what this is a system signal. It's that we're not doing enough equity-focused work in support of students. And getting that message across in a dashboard is a challenge. So there you have it. I wanted to give a brief presentation on dashboards, their intended purpose.
Thank you. Trustee Seminole, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just following, is there, do we follow a certain cohort with some of the data we have collected? Like I just went back to 2017, assuming that those that were in grade 8 in 2024 would have been in grade 3.
So we do a lot of that cohort work, looking at results, whether they're report card results, whether they are what we're seeing in our early screeners and later for a cohort. And we can do that here internally. So we have internal reports that we look at that provide more information that we're not sharing publicly at present. That said, we're always talking about how we might refine these public-facing reports as well. So there may come a time through conversation that and deliberation that we might decide to introduce that to the reporting that's made public. With the caveat that you've got to explain what you're looking at with the public, because to your point, we have to understand that we're not looking at cohort view here at all, right? We're looking at reporting across time, but we're not looking at a cohort.
Yeah, so like right now it's on 2024. If you go back to 2017, the grade 3s in 2017 will be grade 8s.
Yeah.
In 2024, and what the relation is between, you know, are they what percentage is?
Yeah, so we do that in analysis internally, and you have to do you've got to figure that out yourself, like you're doing right now, to come to some analysis. So we can go deeper in terms of, and we do, and we can go deeper in sharing that with our public.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Lots of information to be had for somebody who is sitting down and willing to engage with it. It never ceases to amaze me what Power BI can provide for us. So thank you very much for that. Item 7.4 is resource allocation planning to support students.
Okay, so before I hand it off to Assistant Superintendent Cadez, we will open up a report that is not a public report, but may one day soon be a public report. We're going to focus now on data that highlights the divisional picture of student needs. So not just how many students require additional support, but the type and intensity of those needs across all of our schools. So what we're seeing here is a report describing how we are supporting nearly 4,000 students with identified resource allocation needs. And those needs range from instructional support and regulation to communication, daily living needs, healthcare related needs. So this overall data helps us move beyond assumptions and just feeling our way through all of this work to being very data informed about how we allocate staff and resources where they are needed most. And ensuring again that we're equitable in that approach of distributing supports. So I'm going to let Assistant Superintendent Cadez walk us through the details.
Thank you very much. So this report comes from a framework that was developed by a team of probably 40 people in the division. We had student services teachers, clinicians, principals, vice principals, and some senior leaders coming together over a period of a year, really, to try and look at what different models across the country of how we describe supports and student growth towards independence, and how we can keep track of it in a way that can inform both the system in terms of resource allocation, but also at a school level and even at a classroom level, so you can understand really what the level of support may be required in a class for students to access their programming. The goal here really is to remove barriers for students so that they can be meaningfully engaged in their programming. And some students face more barriers than others. And basically the list that you see on the right is kind of the comprehensive list of everything that we provide that either runs outside the curriculum or alongside the curriculum to allow those students to access their programming. And so we have many different kinds of needs. We've listed them in areas of how we call them priorities, with priority 1 being the healthcare needs. And you can see some of the things that we do with that type of work. Priority 2 is these activities of daily living and daily, human functioning. Basically, we're talking about the self-care needs, communication needs, engagement with the community is the instrumental activities of daily living, and also self-regulation. You hear a lot about students and safety and disruptive behaviors or explosive behaviors or dysregulation within the classroom. And then we've tried to break that down into different reasons for that type of behavior so that we can then target supports that aren't just maintaining the student in the classroom, but are also guiding the student towards some independence in each of these areas. And so the example I always use when I share this is the toileting one. We take that one and we assume if a child needs assistance toileting and it's because of a disability, that this is going to be a lifelong experience and there is no independence to be gained. But really, when you break the process down into different steps, you scaffold how this is done, there are certain elements of that process that can be independent. Perhaps assistance will be required forevermore to get on and off of the toilet, for example, but other parts of that may not be. They may have independence as they get older. And so our goal is to try and build the independence. The whole goal of this is to identify what we want to see as independence in what time frame to see it and find a way to measure that growth towards that outcome. Ultimately, what we get to see as a system here is how we are classifying the different supports we provide to all the individual students. And then from a resource allocation framework, we can also look at that as how many supports does a student require and for how much of the day. And so on the second column, the second box there at the top in the middle, underneath the 3985, you have 1 to 6. And so that tells us how many students are receiving support in just a single domain. That's the 1. So that would be one area of one of those bars that are on the far left side. Whereas on the extreme end of that, there's 53 students identified as receiving support in all 6 areas. Those would be your students with your most complex needs and would be getting supports in at least one of these subcategories in each of the priority areas. So that's one way for us to gauge the intensity of support. On the bottom part of that, what you'll see in the red and pink area is how much support is really required. And so at level 1 being the most intense, we're looking at that as someone who's basically hand over hand next to the student all day long, from the time that they arrive at school to the time they go home. And so those are the students that receive that specific support all day long. Now, sometimes we work on multiple things all day long with students because the needs are so complex, and this is another way for us to articulate that. For other kids, it's just a check-in at some points during the day, and so that'll be the far right-hand side of that pink column where students have much fewer interactions with adults to make that happen. If you look at that healthcare one, for example, most of the healthcare needs require infrequent interaction, monitoring as we go forward. And so 60% of those cases are only done with infrequent monitoring from adults. Nonetheless, we're documenting it so that we can keep track of the work that we're actually doing. And when it comes time for us to talk as a system or as a school or with the province for that matter, which we're doing right now through our student services review that we're doing with them, we're able to talk in very specific terms about the support that we are providing to students, why we are providing it, and we can dig into the student plans that go along with this resource allocation framework so that we can see what goals we are targeting with the students and when that will be reviewed. As we go through this over time, we keep track of this process so that we can see if students are growing in their independence. Because this is new, we've only started this last year, we don't have a history to see that number yet, but it is something we've been very mindful of from the beginning of this process. And as we collect data over the years, we expect to see that we will be able to demonstrate how the application of resources is changing for students over time, demonstrating that that growth towards independence in certain areas. So that's basically an overview of how we look at it. When it comes time to staffing and having conversations in schools, we often pull up this report or a more detailed version of this report that allows us to see in depth what each student is working on and what the schools are focused on and who the personnel are that are involved in doing this. This would not only include EAs, but it also includes all the staff members. This is a team approach to supporting a student. The student support team includes several members of the school community and would be something that would be obviously informed, we've been informing parents of what we're working on.
Okay, any questions on this? Lots of information there. Seeing none, thank you very much for that. That's where I was. That takes us to number 8, correspondence. Trustees will see that there has been some correspondence from the ministry. We have also correspondence that has been sent out, and Manitoba School Boards Association information received by way of the regular e-bulletin. Please take a look at that to see what our provincial association is sharing. It's also available on our website. And we will record all that as received or sent accordingly. We have one action item this evening, which is a carry forward by way of a deferment from our last regular meeting, whereby we entertained a notice of motion that had been brought forward by Trustee Walker and seconded by Trustee Bjornson, related to a couple of things. The board has had a conversation and has agreed, all of us, to some amendments to the motion. And so I'm going to read the item as it is, stands now, and then call for discussion and a vote. So this is a motion to amend our procedural bylaws specific to public question period and agenda transparency. That motion 2025-055, moved by Trustee Walker, seconded by Trustee Bjornson, unanimously amended by substitution to insert the underlined text and to delete the stroked out text to now read as follows. Whereas the current placement of public question period at the end of board meetings limits stakeholders' ability to ask questions or express concern prior to the board's consideration of decision items, and whereas meaningful public participation requires that agenda items be presented with sufficient context and detail so the public can prepare informed questions, and whereas the board is committed to transparency, accountability, and accessible governance practices, therefore be it resolved the procedural bylaws be amended as presented and that they take effect April 21st of 2026. We have a mover and a seconder. Discussion on the motion. Trustee Walker.
I originally moved to this motion because I'm keen to see more community members involved in our meetings. After the families from Recon that end came out to speak to the decision we made, after we made the decision, I understood that moving the question period was important. And I'm also personally frequently going to city council meetings, and I appreciate the detail that I get on business that they're going to be conducting before I go to meetings so that I can prepare. I thought that good if we did the same thing here on board. So I think this will hopefully further democracy in a time where we need more engagement from the public in democratic decisions that were made.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Are there any opposed?
Oh, sorry, my vote.
Nope.
It's just, I'll take a verbal vote.
All those in favor, raise your hands again, please. And the motion is carried. Thank you unanimously. Thank you. All right, before we move to public question period, have an item that has been added, and I will turn to the superintendent who has some information to share.
Yeah, well, this evening I want to share my intention to retire at the end of the school year, effective August 2026. This decision comes after much reflection and deep gratitude for the experiences and relationships that have shaped my life in public education. I am someone whose life and learning were shaped in this community as a student in the former Norwood and St. Boniface school divisions, communities whose histories continue to live. LRSD. I began my teaching career in 1989 in the St. James Assiniboia School Division. In 94, I joined the former St. Vital School Division, which later became part of the newly formed Louis-Riel School Division. LRSD has been my professional home for all that time. By the time I retire this August, I will have completed 37 years of education. Over those decades, I've had the privilege of serving as a teacher, principal, and senior leader. Each role has strengthened my belief in the power of public education and in the extraordinary people who work each day to support students, families, each other, and communities. LRSD, and I've got to say all public schools in Manitoba is defined by its dedicated students, committed staff, devoted families, and strong community. I'm deeply grateful for the trust placed in me and for the opportunity to work alongside so many talented colleagues and trustees who share an unwavering commitment to improving the lived experience for students and staff. So, although several important months of work remain ahead, I want to ensure the board and community have the time needed to engage in a thoughtful and planful transition. I want to thank all of you for the privilege of serving the community that nurtured me, supported me, and helped me grow across decades of my life. Not just
Thank you. We will have also, yes,
Can we clap?
let's do that. We as a board and as a school division will have an opportunity at some point to formally acknowledge your contributions and everything that you have done to ensure that our students and our communities both thrive and flourish. I know I speak on behalf of the board when I say congratulations. Can't wait to see what you do next, because I'm sure you're not going to be. I'm sure you're going to be doing something. But we wish you all the best and thank you for everything that you have brought to LRSD. Okay, public question period. Do we have any folks online that have questions for us? No hands up. Any folks in the room that have questions for us? Ina.
I guess just questions regarding, question and observation regarding the motion that was just supported. Forgive me, my eyesight, I can't see that far. So I'm somewhat familiar with the original motion when it was originally presented a couple weeks back. I honestly cannot see, what were the material changes, Sandy, to essentially, are we, if I understand correctly, are we now permitting community to ask a question during each agenda item and always before an action item as a last ditch pitch? I don't know what the material change.
Yep, so we are going to add a question period at the beginning of the agenda before presentations and delegations. And it will allow members of the community to ask questions of clarification or to provide an opinion or feedback on any items that are in the agenda. And then we will also have a second period of engagement at the end, as we are right now,
Okay.
that will allow the same thing.
I will just like to say, I'm disappointed that that is the result. I'm not convinced that individuals have those detailed or informed questions at the beginning of the meeting. And I'd just like to give an example. There was a delegation here this evening, very informative. They chose to leave, certainly don't hold that against them. But myself tonight, the opportunity is to ask the new rules would be to ask the question either the beginning of the meeting before their presentation.
Yep.
Or after the fact, after they've left.
Correct.
There is something really unique about, like, for example, when Christian presented about this new dashboard, and it was fascinating. When the ball is live in the air, when you're talking about that topic, that's when your head's spinning going, yeah, let me just clarify that. So what's frustrating to me from someone who's sitting here or watching from home is the trustees all get an opportunity to ask questions while that agenda item is live in the air. And what happens is you either have community members who just don't have the bandwidth to stick around for an hour and a half or 2-hour meeting, or they've forgotten the question, or it just doesn't seem appropriate anymore to ask it after so much time has passed. So I hope this board will reconsider that. I'm not convinced at the beginning of the meeting would be appropriate. I get that you want to limit your meetings. You don't want these to be 3-hour meetings, but allowing for a couple questions per item, I think would be more meaningful dialogue. I myself have sat here and watched trustees ask great questions, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I've got this one. I'm not allowed to, gotta wait till the end. Well, by the time the end of the meeting. So that's a disappointment. I do appreciate the fact that the board overall is addressing, improving, call it transparency. I'm disappointed that it took motion and all of this debate, because I personally feel, I always thought community engagement is a fundamental duty of trusteeship and should just be an obvious slam dunk. It should not have warranted a motion, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments, Ina. I guess part of the consideration for us is to be able to make sure that the board does its work.
Yeah.
That's the purpose of the regular meetings, is for us to do our work. And we are all here after the meeting's adjourned for a period of time for anybody who wants to engage with us. And it's not, it's not the only way that people can do that. I would point to the other part of the motion that is going to, as to the extent possible, include a little bit of information about the agenda items. And in the case of policy, assuming that our technology will support that, be able to offer links, although people can just go into our policy documents and find them. So the hope is that we have created opportunity for engagement without derailing the fact that this is the space where we need to do work, and in a timely manner, knowing that there are all sorts of opportunities for folks to engage with that otherwise. But your points are appreciated, and thank you for joining us tonight. Jay, any questions?
No questions, just a comment on the heels of the news. I just want to publicly thank Christian for his years of service on behalf of all 1,300 teachers that were in the division. You've been wonderful to work with over the past few years. We wish nothing but the best for you in the future, and we'll definitely make sure to send you an invite for our
There you go. All right. We are adjourned for this evening. Trustees, we need to have a short conversation, so regroup and then come back as soon as you can, please. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.